Hi, everyone, and welcome to the early birds. We are 2 minutes before the hour, so thank you for being here so promptly. We are going to wait just a couple of minutes for people to join. So in the meantime, it would be really great if you could start introducing yourselves to us in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Are you an e-resident? Do you have a company, whether it's in Estonia or elsewhere in the world? And maybe something about what you're hoping to learn today in this Q&A. Hi, Konstantinos from Greece. I'm actually going to be in Greece in a couple of weeks. I'm looking very much forward to the sunshine. So very nice to see you here. Okay, we have a few people from Asia, from India and China, but you're living in Spain. Very nice, very close. Hi, Oana from Romania. Nice to meet you. Hi, Jussi. I can see that you're from just, 85 or 86 kilometers away in Helsinki. Nice to see you. We have some people from Turkey, from the US, early morning in the US. And I can see that some people are also saying what they're interested in. People are saying they're looking to incorporate their business. They're wondering about starting a company in bioinformatics. Very interesting. Hi, George from Nairobi. Nice to see there are some people here from the African continent as well. And from South America. Hello, Hilton from Brazil.
Well, all over the world.
Yep. It seems like we have a very international audience today. And just so you all know, there's well over 150 of you here in attendance. So a lot of you here, and there's also a lot of content to get through. So I think let's get started.
All right.
So I'm going to share my screen with some slides. We're going to do this webinar in 3 parts. Can't I see the... Sorry. Why can't I see the... Sorry, everyone. I'm just having problems finding the... Okay, I'm going to just stop that. Where is it? It's like supposed to be down here. Okay, I'm going to just stop sharing. Stop sharing like this. And share my whole screen. Where is it?
Is it that play?
Yeah. The webinar. Sorry, everyone.
This is Estonia. Everything's digital. Everything's works all the time.
My bad. Okay, now you should be able to see the slides. Very good. All right, so this is the first of 2024 live Q&A with the eResidency team. And this is a chance for you to ask all the questions that you have about eResidency, about starting a company in Estonia, business banking, and international taxation. So we're going to do the webinar in 3 parts. Between each part, we'll stop for some questions to make it a little bit more interactive. And we also have some special guests here. So I'll introduce the guests first, and then we'll get straight into the content. So firstly, I'm Hannah. I'm head of content from eResidency. You've probably seen my face on quite a few marketing materials. And also here is Alex.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here.
You've also probably seen his face. And then we also have a very special guest, Maya. Maya, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks so much for inviting me, and it's fantastic to see so many people here from all over the world. I'm Maya Middlemiss. My Estonian business is BlockSparks, and I am the founder of Remote Work Europe. I also represent eResidency as an official envoy, and it's great to see so many new faces here today.
Thanks, Maya. And we'll hear more from Maya a bit later, but just so we can get the introductions out of the way, we also have 2 representatives here from one office. Vera, and unfortunately Anna couldn't make it. She's a little bit unwell, but we have a replacement accountant from one office, Marianne. So Vera, maybe you would like to start with your introductions about one office.
Yes, hello everyone. First of all, I want to thank you that you're having us here again. And my name is Veera, and I'm a lawyer at One Office Estonia. And with me is Marianne, our accountant. And I'm going to make a little overview of One Office. So One Office has over 15 years of international experience, and we operate in 7 markets. So we operate in Estonia, Finland, Sweden, UK, Ireland, Latvia, and Lithuania. And also this year, we launched our new Spanish website. So all the Spanish customers can contact us, and we can offer our services in Spanish now. And we offer all the services from establishing on the company until the end, everything that one's company might need: address, legal advice, accounting, business services. And we have experience. We have worked with more than 4,000 companies from all over the world, and this has given us a lot of experience. And also, here's a little fun fact about One Office, that we are the world record owner for the fastest company incorporation online, and this was done in 15 minutes and 33 seconds.
By an e-resident as well.
Yes. And moving on to the next slide.
So Veera, I know that you have a special offer for e-residents, but I think maybe it might be worth we talking about that after we've talked about company formation. So I've moved that slide to that section. I hope that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's
okay,
fine by
great.
us.
So we'll come back to that.
Yes.
Okay, so now that the introductions are done, a quick agenda set. We're going to cover, first of all, becoming an e-resident, what is e-residency, eligibility criteria, and the process to apply. Then we'll talk about starting a company in Estonia. We'll cover the benefits, some basics about registration, who can help you with your business, who we call service providers, and we'll talk a little bit about banking options for e-residents as well. And finally, we'll talk about taxation. We'll give you a very broad overview of cross-border tax topics, as well as the tax system in Estonia. If you have questions, please start putting them in the Q&A. We will answer questions in the Q&A verbally amongst the hosts of this panel. And also, I do have a couple of friends in the background, Katrina and Merit, who will be also answering questions in writing. So please use the Q&A for all your questions. And if you would like to network with each other, please use the chat. And I can see that a few people are raising their hand. We're not going to be, because we have a lot of content and a lot of questions to get through, we won't be inviting people to speak during this webinar. So please just sit back and relax and be entertained. So I'm going to hand over to Alex now to start with the what is e-residency topic.
All right. Yeah, great. Let's kick it off with that. So what is e-residency? And after we'll talk about what e-residency is not as well. So e-residency is, first of all, a digital identity that gives you access to Estonian e-services. And it's also gives you the ability to give a secure digital signature, which is done at the highest security level by EU standards. And it's also a digital key to do business. So you have a key on your card that allows you to sign, and it's a key to doing business globally. And one thing we're going to talk a lot about today is our community. So Maya is a member of the e-residency community. I'm sure many people on this call are already members of the community. So we really think that when you become an e-resident, you get access to a community around the world that helps you start and run your business. So what e-residency is not, it's not a travel document. So it's not a passport, it's not citizenship, it doesn't give you a visa or residence permit in Estonia or in the EU. It's not automatic personal tax residency. And I know there's going to be a lot of tax questions. So as Hannah mentioned, we do have a separate tax section later. So we'll cover that more in detail. And e-residency also does not give you automatic access to a business bank account.
Hello.
But we'll cover that a bit later as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, sorry, there's
Yes,
someone on the call. Can you please unmute?
Good, okay. But I'm not in Bangalore right now.
Can you please mute, please? And
I'm not in here.
you're not a panelist. I don't know why you're here.
Yes.
Please mute.
Yeah, it's good.
Katrina, can you maybe help me mute whoever
Let's
is
see.
speaking? On it.
In a couple of days.
Okay, I just found it. Yep. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Alex.
No worries. Okay, oops. We took a break in January and now, we're having a little bit of a rough start. So please, thank you. Hopefully no one's dropping off and saying, what is this thing here? So thank you so much. Okay, so moving on. So who can apply for e-residency? So I think it's important to remember that e-residency is granted to you as an individual. So you apply as a person. And you must have substantial interest in using e-services in Estonia. And most people apply for e-residency for the ability to set up a company in Estonia. And of course, it probably doesn't affect many people on the call, but it's not open for Estonian citizens or residents. And currently, we also are not taking any new applications from Russian or Belarusian citizens. But why should you become an e-resident? First of all, when you become an e-resident, you can register an EU-based company 100% online from anywhere in the world. And as was mentioned earlier, we also have the world record for fastest company incorporation. And of course, you can also digitally sign documents, as I mentioned, using the highest eIDAS standards. So this means that signatures that you give with your Estonian e-residency digital ID card are legally equivalent to a handwritten signature. Of course, you can also run your business remotely 24/7 with secure access to all of Estonian services. And I know after the pandemic, many people are working remotely and they're looking for solutions on how to run their business from anywhere. And of course, again, we have 110,000 e-residents now from 170 countries. So I think that's really reflected here in the chat as well. We saw people from every continent, from a lot of countries. So it's a really good and diverse group. Let's go over the application timeline. So you apply fully online through Estonia's Police and Border Guard Board websites. Then you'll choose your pickup location where you will go and collect your card. So the state fee for the application is 100 to 120 euros. Most of you would pay 120 euros because you'd be picking it up outside of Estonia. And then you're going to wait for the approval process. The Estonian Police and Border Guard Board are going to do an identity check. And then they will ship your digital ID card to your chosen pickup location. Then this is really important. This is what keeps the integrity of our program right now is you have to go have one face-to-face meeting at one of our embassies and pick up your card in person. And you need to do this individually. You can't send someone on your behalf to do it. And you'll have to bring your photo ID and give your biometrics to the consular officer. And after that, you'll have your card set up and it activates within 24 hours, but normally it activates straight away, actually. And then you can set up your company and start giving digital signatures. And this process typically takes about 3 to 8 weeks, depending on where you chose to pick up your card. And you can see the map here of all of our pickup locations around the world. So you can see they're mostly clustered in Europe. We do have a few in North America and a few in East Asia, but 40 locations. And another thing to keep in mind is that you may need to travel to a nearby location. And if you do need to travel to another country, you need to have the legal right to enter that country to pick up your card. So now we're going to pause and take some questions. As Hannah mentioned, please put your questions in the Q&A tab, not in the chat, and we'll take a look at them.
And I had a little, did you know, little fun fact here, which I'll sprinkle throughout the webinar, that Estonia has over 2,000 islands, in case you didn't know. And while we're looking at the questions to answer, I just wanted to bring in Maya to talk a little bit more about herself. So Maya, take it away.
Okay, well, as you can see from there, I've been an e-resident since 2018, which it's actually coming up on my 6th anniversary of discovering e-residency at the exact moment I needed it. So that's a long time in e-residency terms, and so much has changed since then in terms of my business, the global business climate, and the e-residency marketplace, and everything that e-residency can do for you. My history of it was that I was a freelancer living in Spain at the time and working with clients all over the world as a simple Spanish freelancer. And I suddenly came across a situation where I couldn't make a contract with somebody who wanted to pay me, which is quite frustrating when you're working. And it was an American company, and they just couldn't somehow make a deal or accept an invoice from a European freelancer. And of course, because they were American and everything was straightforward, they said, well, we'll just spin up a limited company and you can give us an invoice. And in Spain at the time, I mean, they had no idea what they were asking me to do. So that would have been taken months, cost more than the contract itself was worth. It's a little bit better now, but it was pretty much impossible then. So long story short, luckily, I'd already heard of Estonian e-Residency because I wrote about emergent technology and distributed ledgers. And I thought, I've got to look into this. And within, I think it was about 6 weeks end to end, from applying to my ID card to whizzing up to Madrid to get it, to setting up a limited company in Estonia. It was about 6 weeks altogether. The long bit is obviously applying for the registration card if you do that for the first time. So do that anyway, is my strong advice if you think you might ever require having an Estonian private limited company. And then the company formation is incredibly quick. It took me about 24 hours in 2018 compared to 3 months it would have been to do the same in Spain. Didn't get quite near one office's record of 15 minutes, but I think most people will find that the average turnaround time is all that you need. And then you can start doing your business immediately. And that was obviously 6 years ago now. I no longer work for the client in question, but I held on to my Estonian e-Residency and my Estonian private limited company for lots of reasons. I find the ability to trade as a limited company rather than a freelancer gives me a great many advantages. And it's obviously brought me into contact with the Estonian e-Residency team and the community that goes with that. Because I work with emergent technologies and I work as a storyteller, that's been incredibly powerful and synergistic for me to connect with so many amazing people. And my latest project is Remote Work Europe, trying to bring together everything that I've learned writing and speaking and consulting in remote work, for which I've been doing for 25 years now, and trying to make that more accessible to new people across Europe. And one of the things that we come across all the time is how fragmented things are still in regulatory terms. You might have one kind of passport and you might have permission to live somewhere else and you're registered as a freelancer here, but you want to go and be a digital nomad there. And it's really complicated. E-Residency is a really core part of that solution set to enable you to have a business that stays in one place wherever you are from and wherever you want to go, and pretty much whatever you want to do. So e-Residency as a solution for borderless business is something I'm really passionate about, and I love sharing that story with the world. So
Thanks, Maya. Thanks, Maya.
is that enough, Hannah? I could waffle on for hours, but I will shut up now and let you get back to your presentation.
I know, and if people do have specific questions for Maya, please also ask those in the Q&A tab as well. We do have some questions. So there is a few questions about card pickup. The pickup of the card will be at Estonian embassies located in the countries where Alex showed you on the map. So there are some gaps around the world, and I did see someone else asking about Brazil. We don't have currently a pickup location in Brazil. This is something that we are working on and really trying to broaden the number of cities and locations where we can hand out cards around the world. So that's an answer to that one. And someone is asking, why do we need to pick up a physical card when we say it's a digital identity? This is actually a very good question, and we could probably do a PhD topic on it. Basically, it's about EU regulations. So the way that you verify yourself to be able to access digital services in Estonia and in the EU requires at the moment you to make an in-person meeting and have a certificate in a document. So Alex has actually the document or an example of the document.
Yeah, I guess you have to look at the little screen because we're sharing our other screen right now, but this is what it looks like when you pick up your kit.
Yeah.
So,
and we are working on ways to eventually, maybe not have the card as mandatory. So something like if you've heard about the EU smart wallet scheme.
Yeah.
So we're looking at things like this about so whether we can fit in with that.
there's one question, I think a lot of questions we'll cover later on in the tax section. There's one question about the biometrics. So I just mentioned that, when you go to pick up your card at the embassy, they will take your fingerprints. That's the only biometrics that are collected in that process.
And I also saw a few people asking about pickup locations in African countries. At the moment, we only have pickup location in Cairo in Egypt. And otherwise you would need to travel elsewhere in the world, to Europe or Asia or America, to find a location to pick up your card. Okay, and one more question and then we'll go to company formation. Olga has asked, how long is the webinar going to last? I've put an hour into the Zoom, but normally we go a bit over because we do get a lot of questions, and because we do have nearly 300 people in this webinar today, I can already see we're falling behind with questions. So maybe we'll go 15 minutes over the hour if that's okay with people. All right, let's move on to the next part of the webinar. So now we're going to talk about why do business in Estonia and how to do it. So we believe that you should do business in Estonia with e-Residency because it's where entrepreneurs go to do business 100% digitally and from anywhere in the world, as Maya and Alex have both already mentioned. There are 4 main value propositions that we believe separates us from other business locations. The first is ease. It's very easy to do business here in Estonia, thanks to the digital ID and also thanks to the country's very business-friendly laws and regulations. The second is trust. So here we're talking about security, we're talking about data privacy, and we're talking about a government that cares about its citizens, and that includes its e-residents as well. So we want to make sure that you can do business safely here with a lot of certainty and trust in the process. The third is opportunity. So you can access a lot of opportunities here in Estonia, and we will talk probably a bit more about these later, but these include funding and investment. They include accelerator and incubator programs for startups. You can test your ideas here, and you can meet a lot of people to help you grow. And also, if you're more of a freelancer or a solopreneur type, a really great opportunity for you is that you spend less time doing administration, and which leaves you more time to actually do the work that you can for clients or do training or upskill, these kinds of things. And finally, community. We've mentioned this a few times, so I won't go into this in too much detail, but we have a lot. Maya is not the only e-resident envoy we have. I think we have almost 20 now from different countries around the world. And beyond that, we have a lot more engaged community, willing to help, willing to share information, and maybe even could be your future client or partner. So I've already seen a few people asking about sort of business comparisons, business environment comparisons, and you can see that I do have Portugal on here. I think someone was asking about Portugal. I'm not going to go through every single thing on this slide, but I will just mention a few things. So this table is content that's relevant for foreigners starting companies in these countries. So the equivalent of being an e-resident in Estonia. So the first thing I want to show you is the time to register business. One office already mentioned that the world record is 15 minutes and 33 seconds. So you can try and beat that if that's something that's up your alley. But generally, we typically see people opening a company in about 2 hours. And if it's on the weekend, it might take 24 hours to 2 days to register. The second thing I want to mention is the fact that in Estonia, as an e-resident, you don't actually need any legal director or visa or a legal representative who has responsibility for your company in Estonia. We'll talk a little bit in the coming slides that you will need a contact person, but essentially that is just basically a messenger for your company here. They're not an agent for your company. Compare that with some of the other countries here, where you will need one or more of these things. And you can see that e-Residency does make it a bit easier for foreigners to start a company in Europe. E-services and digital ID, Estonia and Singapore are probably the best for these. The UK isn't far behind, but when you look at states like Delaware, Ireland, and Portugal, they do only have limited e-services still, and they don't have digital ID cards yet. Just on Portugal, because that one was specifically mentioned, I probably shouldn't say this, but they seem to do a lot of talking and saying that they're doing things on their websites. But when you actually look into it, when you talk to accountants, lawyers, and other entrepreneurs who have businesses in Portugal, in practice, it is still a lot of paperwork and going to notaries to do your business there. And the final one is, we are talking about taxes later, but this is just to show you that the ease of administration is even evidenced in how long it takes to, for example, file tax returns. In Estonia, it's much less time than some of the other countries. Okay, so let's talk about the life cycle of your Estonian company. So the first thing to know about is how to register. So once you have your e-Residency digital ID card, you can log into the e-business register in Estonia, or if you use a service provider, they might have their own API formation service to register your company. The hardest part is choosing a name and finding the area of activity that you do. But once you've got those two things, it's a very simple process to register the company. And we do recommend getting the help of a service provider, particularly if it's your first business or your first time doing business outside of your own country. And then the other thing you'll need to do at this point is choose business banking and payment providers. And I will cover this in a few slides in more detail. So once you've set up your company, you'll need to run it. And this can be done very easily by digitally signing documents, by filing reports online, and also by outsourcing your administration and getting specialist advice on your particular business circumstances with the help of qualified accountants, tax lawyers, business consultants, and more, similar to One Office. I will show you where you can find these people in the next slide. And finally, when you're ready to grow your company, as I mentioned before, you will have a lot of opportunities to do so. We're currently doing some work which we'll be publishing soon about hiring, particularly in Estonia, and how you can hire. But you can also hire remotely using companies like Deal, who's on our marketplace, and do distributed accounting with your remote teams using someone like Payhawk, for example. So those are possibilities if you're looking to grow in terms of headcount. Investments, you will find a lot of VC and angel investors think of Estonia quite fondly when it comes to tech and startups. So having an Estonian company will be very good in their eyes. And the other thing that is a really good thing to do to grow your company is to network. So meet other founders, whether they're e-residents or not, come to community events when we put them on around the world or in Estonia, and business meetups. And hopefully soon we will be doing some online ones as well. So those are really great places to find people to help you grow your company. Okay, so I mentioned service providers. So these are the accountants, the lawyers, etc., who can help you start, run, and grow your company. We have a feature on the eResidency website called the Marketplace, so you can find that straight away. It has over 140 expert service providers. The only mandatory service you'll need is a local contact person in Estonia. I think there are around 40 companies offering this service on the Marketplace, so you should find one that suits you. And Estonian companies where the foreign board address is overseas will need to have one of these contact people. And as I mentioned before, they're not a legal agent of your company. They don't have any liability or responsibility from a legal perspective, but they can act as your messenger, your mailbox, your local address in Estonia for your company. You can also find a ton more services on the Marketplace.
And Hannah, I'm looking at the Q&A. Kolo, you're asking where are the service providers? So here you can find them in the Marketplace here.
Yeah, so just Google eResidency Marketplace, or you can find it in the drop-down menus on our website and start searching. You can use filters, you can compare, there's ratings and reviews, so all sorts of things. You can see who the best company for you is. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about company types here. So Maya, in her introduction, mentioned that she has a company called Blocksparts OÜ. And so the OÜ is a private limited company in Estonia, and it's the most popular business form here. It limits shareholder liability like any private limited company, and it has a very simple online registration process. It's suitable for any company with one shareholder or more. So it's suitable for solopreneurs. And here I mean, freelancers, consultants, side hustlers, as well as, companies looking to grow. So micro enterprises, startups, SMEs. Share capital starts from €1 per shareholder. So it's very low. These are the other types of companies that you might look into if you're considering this. There's a public company type, there's different types of partnerships, there's commercial or non-profit associations, sole traders, and you can also set up a branch for your foreign company here in Estonia as well. I did see some people asking about non-profit associations in the chat, in the Q&A. We do have a really, really great blog article on this topic. So if you go onto our blog and maybe search for non-profit, you'll find the article, and that will give you a lot of information about starting one in Estonia. We won't be covering that topic so much in this webinar as it's quite specific. I also want to talk a little bit about costs because we do get questions about costs. So once you've paid your e-residency application fee, which is either 100 and 120, you'll then register your OU, and that's €265, one-off fee. So you don't have to pay any more after that. That's just a single fee to register. If you get a contact person for your company, you can expect to pay between 200 and 400 per year. But there are also many service providers who offer the contact person fee as part of a package. So for example, if you get accounting, you might pay from, say, €50 per month. Sometimes these packages include the contact person within it. So you may end up paying actually less for the combined if you get a package. And you can find the packages on our marketplace by looking at particular service providers. So I've done some back of the envelope calculations here for your first year, rough costs. If you do it yourself, which means you only have a contact person, expect to pay from €565 for the first year, just to set up. If you're getting accounting support, it's a little bit more. It's, over 1,000 for the year. And also think when you're doing your budgeting to start a company here, make sure you think about, other costs in your budget. So for example, if you do need to travel to pick up your card, think about those costs. If your company is in a sort of more regulated industry and maybe you need to get a license or make a notice of economic activity, there might be some costs associated with that and maybe even some legal advice costs. If you need to get tax advice, that will also raise the costs as well. So make sure you think about those when you're budgeting. Okay, let's talk about business banking. So there are 3 options for e-residence. I'm going to go through them each now. Estonian banks is an option, but it is historically, it has been the most difficult option for e-residence. This is because you need to make a personal visit to at least once to an Estonian bank branch. So that means coming to Estonia, which is not available to everyone. The other thing that you need to evidence in your application is that your business has a strong connection to Estonia. And this doesn't mean that you just have an accountant here. You need to show that you have a lot of clients or logistics set up here, or a factory, an office, these types of things. And you actually really do have business going on in Estonia. The second option, and this is by far the most popular, and I would suggest this for everyone when starting, is the fintech option. So fintechs are, these neobanks. They're online banks where you can open accounts online. There's a wide choice. The only disadvantage here is that they're not credit institutions, so they don't provide business loans. I'm going to show you on the next slide just how many choices you might have. We have quite a lot of fintechs on the marketplace. And the third option, and this is an option that a lot of people maybe don't know about so much, is that if you do have an existing client relationship with a bank located in another European Economic Area country, they might be willing to open an account for your Estonian company. And this is something that we have seen. It happens. I know of people who've set up accounts in banks in Portugal, in Belgium, and I think in Bulgaria as well. So you know, if you do have already a business in the EU or in the EEA, maybe you should ask your bank as well about the Estonian branch. Okay, so this is the table I promised you. So you can see that there are sort of two types here on this table. The first two are Estonian banks. These are LHV and Co-op. These are, by the way, all these brands are on our marketplace, so you can find more information out about each of them. And then the next group are fintechs. So you can have a look at all of these to see whether they suit your circumstances. And then also, if you are selling products, you might need a payment gateway, either on your website or something that you can use, like a Stripe or a Payoneer, where they have it all set up for you. So these are some of the options for payment gateways and merchants. So you can have a look at these also on our marketplace as well. Okay, so let's pause for a Q&A on business formation. And my fun fact for this round is that Estonia's population is 1.3 million, which is very small, considering that we have over 110,000 e-residents. That's nearly 10% of the Estonian population. Crazy, huh? So while we're looking at the questions, I'm going to invite Vida to talk a little bit about a special offer that One Office has right now.
Yes, we have a special offer for all the Q&A participants. So One Office is offering you, if you start your company through us and become our accounting client for at least 3 months, then you will get the business address and contact person service for only 49 euros per year. So you can contact us, estonia@oneoffice.co, and mention the magic word special offer. And then you can go further from there. Then there were some questions.
Yes, please, start us off.
There were questions that if somebody, a foreign legal entity wants to incorporate a company in Estonia, is it possible? So yes, it's possible. We have done it a lot of times. So if you're planning something, then please contact us, and then we can help you with that. It requires more documents from your side. I know that Germany is usually very in love with paper documents. So, and there were questions also that can my friend be a contact person for my company? So the contact person has to be a service provider. And I saw a few questions there as well.
I'll just add to that bit of, I should have mentioned this, but the contact person has to be licensed or from a certain profession. So like lawyers, like certified accountants, these types of things. So unfortunately, you can't ask your Estonian friend.
There's a couple questions here about Estonia versus Portugal. Hannah had this chart at the very beginning of this section comparing some different jurisdictions. But we also have a specific Estonia versus Portugal article. So I'll drop that in the chat right now too, so you can take a look at that. I think Anne had some questions about that. You know, someone's asking Hannah too about Wise. So I know that Wise had currently paused onboarding new business clients across the EU, but we just received word that they are slowly opening that back up again. So Wise, which used to be called TransferWise, will probably start taking applications again for business accounts.
David has a good question about what are the limitations of not having an IBAN in the country. Sorry, I just lost the question. Where your business is. This is a really good question, and I will give it to you. So in Europe, there's actually a regulation, a directive that says that you cannot be discriminated against if you live in a country and you have an IBAN or a bank account in another European country. And we think that this also applies to businesses as well. And so we've actually joined a campaign along with Wise and other fintechs organizations to try and get countries to enforce this. And it is slowly working. Apparently, I heard yesterday that Google has stopped discriminating against people with a different IBAN. I think that was in the e-Residency of Estonia Facebook group. So the issue that you do run into sometimes is if you are selling on, for example, marketplaces like Amazon Marketplace or Google or Etsy or these types of things, sometimes they have in their onboarding form, they don't like it if you have an Estonian company and a non-Estonian IBAN. But from what I understand, this is slowly changing as they realize that more and more people are using fintechs, and fintechs do have often IBANs in different countries. So other than those instances, I don't think that you will run into too many problems. If you're running a service-based company and you don't necessarily need a merchant, or you're not necessarily selling on marketplaces, you shouldn't run into too many problems with having a different IBAN. Maya, maybe while we're looking at businesses, could you maybe talk a little bit about your banking experiences with e-Residency, just so that people can understand the process of how an e-resident went through that?
Yeah, I mean, my experiences are going back to 2018 again, and I think there have been some more issues with banks since then. But I have a bank account with LHV in Tallinn, and I did have to make a trip for the face-to-face KYC that they still have to do, even in digital Estonia, to prove that I was who I said I was. But at that time, it was relatively easy to convince them, even though I'd barely started trading, that I had that connection with Estonia. And I know that's more challenging now. But there are a much wider array of fintech solutions out there, which you can certainly use initially to get yourself going. And then if you need the services of a full clearing bank later on, once you've maybe done some business in Estonia, once you've established your company, then it's well worth making a trip anyway and go and meet the lovely folks at eResidency, as well as having a coffee and a meeting at the bank. Because if you're going to need credit, if you're going to need services like that, then yes, at some point you probably will need a full clearing bank. But honestly, if you can get going with, it's great to hear that Wise are opening up to new applicants again. I know some people use Revolut, is very popular in Spain. I know that some people in Spain, I believe, have managed to use a Spanish bank for their Estonian business. IBAN discrimination is a pretty rife thing in Spain. If you ever try to pay a bill to a utility or a government agency in Spain for anything other than an ES IBAN, but the other way around, I believe it can be a bit more flexible. So there will definitely be a way to do it. And it really depends on what services you need, especially if you need payment gateways as well. They don't all necessarily play nicely with each other, but nowadays there's usually an API or something you can hook up your Stripe card or your PayPal to whatever service you're using. So there'll be a way through it, and there'll probably be somebody in the marketplace who can help you figure it out.
Vera, did you have any other questions that you would like to answer? Otherwise, we'll get moving on to the taxes, because I know that there are a lot about taxes.
Yes, I think that we can move on to taxes. If anybody is interested, then One Office website has a lot of information about establishing companies with different founders, and we have blog posts, and you can contact us then if you have more specific questions, because I think the taxation is the part that everybody is interested in.
Thank you. Okay. Was there any more, Alex, from your side?
No, I think we can move on. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I just want to start with a very broad statement. Some people may know this, maybe some people don't, who haven't necessarily done business across borders yet, but it's an incredibly complex system or systems when it comes to taxation when you're doing business across borders. So you need to think about not only the tax system in your own country, where your company is. So in this case, it would be Estonia. You also need to think about tax system in the country where you spend most of your time, where you live and you do the work, possibly also the countries where a lot of your clients are, especially when it comes to VAT, where your employees are, especially when it comes to social taxes. And if you're a digital nomad, you also need to think about like, where is your tax residency? So I'm going to give you a very, very broad overview of international taxation and the sort of types of things that you need to think about when you're looking to start a company in another country like Estonia. We won't be able to answer your very specific questions because every single case is different. So this is something that I really want to emphasize right now. If you have a complicated case where you live in one country, you have a company in another, you have clients in another and employees in another, I would really, really, really suggest that you go and speak to a professional tax consultant who might have some knowledge of international treaties and different legislations. So that's the introduction and maybe a slight disclaimer as well about how much information we can give you. And now let's get into the basics. So the first thing that I want to cover are the types of taxes to think about, because there are different ones. This is a non-exhaustive list. There will be others that come up around like property and vehicles and these kinds of things, but I'm not going to cover those here. So the first one is personal income tax. The general rule here is that you declare personal income tax where you are tax resident. Normally, this is where you live or you spend at least 183 days of the year in a row. Second type is corporate income tax, and this is company tax. So in most countries, you are liable to pay taxes as soon as you start making profits. It's actually a different story in Estonia, but we will talk about that a bit later. So the general rule for corporate income tax is you declare the tax where your company is registered and or it has a permanent establishment. And I'm going to talk more about what permanent establishment is in the next slide. The third type of taxes are social taxes. So these are, also known as employment taxes, labor taxes, pensions, superannuation, unemployment funds, these types of things. So these are the taxes that you'll need to think about if you have employees, and that includes yourself as an employee of your company if you're paying yourself an employee salary. And you will declare these taxes where your employees are located and or registered. And the final type to be aware of are value-added taxes, or VAT, also called GST in some countries. And these are taxes on sales. And in particular in Europe, they're taxes on sales to consumers, to individuals. And in Europe, generally speaking, you declare and pay VAT in the country where the supply is made, so where the consumer sits. But the EU has in recent years made these one-stop shop and import one-stop shop programs, which means that online sellers can actually now declare VAT in the country where they are VAT registered. So for example, if you have an Estonian company and you're VAT registered in Estonia and you're making supplies that are below the thresholds, by the way, there are thresholds here, online to different countries in Europe, you will be able to declare your VAT in Estonia and it will be set off with other European tax boards. So that's quite a cool thing that's come on in recent years. And we all hope and dream that it will happen even more in other areas of tax as well. One can dream. Okay, let's talk about company taxes, because this is the main one that you really, really need to think about when structuring your business. The first thing to note is that as soon as you automatically register your Estonian company, the Estonian Tax Board will consider it to be a tax resident in Estonia. But I've mentioned this word before, permanent establishment. If your company has activities in other countries, and what do I mean by this? So if you're making board decisions from, say, Germany, if your employees are also located in Germany, if you're registering assets like vehicles under your business or computers or hardware, these types of things in Germany, if you have an office or even you're using part of your apartment as a home office in Germany, these will all be activities that the German tax office will consider a permanent establishment in Germany. So that means you'll probably also have tax liabilities for your company in Germany. What else is important to know is that e-residency is not tax residency, as Alex said earlier, which means it doesn't exempt your company from foreign tax liabilities. Estonia would never be able to do that because it would be undiplomatic and also breaking the sovereignty of other countries. So, you know, we offer the program of e-residency knowing that people, or hoping and wanting people to be paying their taxes legally around the world where they're due. So really clear statement here. Estonia is not a tax haven, and taxes is not necessarily the #1 reason to set up a company as an e-resident in Estonia. There are better reasons for you. The good news is, though, that Estonia has signed a lot of double tax treaties. So these are conventions, agreements between countries where they agree that someone shouldn't be double taxed. So, for example, with my example before, with the German example, if the German tax authority says you should be paying taxes in Germany, the Estonian tax board will exempt dividends in full here in Estonia, because they realize that actually, yes, the taxes should be paid in Germany. So you shouldn't be double taxed. And again, I'm going to repeat, contact a local tax consultants for professional advice regarding your specific situation. But now you have at least some basics so that when you go to the tax consultant, you can, you know, go through all these things and say what your personal situation is. So let's talk a little bit about the Estonian tax system. I did mention before that it's different from other countries. It has very minimal tax regulation and fairly low rates, relatively speaking, compared to other countries. When I say minimal tax regulation, I mean the tax code here is like this. It's very, very thin. It's not, you know, a huge textbook like in some other countries. So this is the way that it's different. There's no annual corporate income tax in Estonia. Instead, taxes are made on distributed profits. So if a company reinvests profits and keeps it as capital in the company, you don't pay tax. As soon as you start distributing the profits, you will pay a tax of 20%. And this is rising to 22% from 2025. VAT in Estonia is 22%. But this is only for suppliers in Estonia to consumers in Estonia. So you'll need to think if you have clients in other European countries or in other countries around the world where VAT needs to be put onto the supply, take a look at the rate in that jurisdiction. For companies in Estonia where your turnover reaches 40,000 euros per year, you will need to register for VAT. But before that, you can also register for VAT if you want. If it makes things easier, it gets you in the habit of doing your monthly VAT declarations, and it means that you've already got that ready for when you reach that turnover point. And I've already mentioned these regimes. This is the one-stop shop and the import one-stop shop regimes where the EU is trying to simplify VAT across different jurisdictions. So in Estonia, taxes can be declared and paid completely online. And the Estonian tax board is extremely friendly. This is not an exaggerated statement. They are extremely friendly. They will respond to your queries very quickly. And they even have a special email address for non-resident taxpayers. So it's nonresident@emta.ee. You'll find this contact on our website if you need it. But just so you know that they do have a designated email for non-residents. So I talked the game. How great is Estonia? How great is the Estonian tax system? But how do you actually get to pay taxes here? Because I also talked about how difficult it is with concepts, you know, international law concepts like permanent establishment. So there are some things that you can do. One is, for example, move more of your business operations to Estonia by, for example, renting an office and hiring employees and holding board meetings here. You can also register assets here. There's an intellectual property trademark register, which is, you know, linked to the EU one. And you can also, for example, purchase motor vehicles under your company and other hardware as well that you use for business purposes. Another option is to relocate. So we have on the bottom right-hand corner there, that's Julian. He's a German e-resident, and he recently told us that he's actually going to relocate here. Not so much for the taxes or the business banking, but because he's excited about the opportunities that he can find for his business, which is a health and wellness business here in Estonia. And finally, you can become a digital nomad. And that's what Miguel and Ignacio have been doing for a very long time. They're in the top right corner there. They are they're e-resident envoys like Maya, and they're also a service provider on the marketplace. Their company is called Compagno, and they've been traveling the world for, I don't know, almost as long as e-Residency has been around. So almost 10 years. Using an Estonian company to run their business. And as a digital nomad, while certain aspects of tax might be a little bit difficult, like making sure you know where you're tax resident, which can sometimes be difficult. On the other hand, it makes it easier for you to have an argument to pay taxes for your company in Estonia, because you're not setting up a permanent establishment anywhere else. So in that sense, digital nomads, it's quite a good use case for them tax-wise to have a legal entity here. If you want to learn more about substance in Estonia, here is the link. And this is a good point where I'm going to tell you, because I have seen that people have been asking this question. Yes, you will receive a copy of these slides so that you will be able to click on this link directly, or you can also find it in our menu tab in our website. So tomorrow you'll receive a follow-up email. It will have a link to our webinar follow-up page. You can download slides there. There's old recordings, recordings of older webinars, and I will put the recording of this webinar up once it's ready on YouTube. And you can also find other guides, checklists, information, things there. Okay, so let's stop. That's the content done for today. Let's have a few questions on taxes. And here is where I will say, did you know that Estonian is a Finno-Ugric language, which is closely related to Finnish and Hungarian, funnily enough. And it's the 5th toughest to learn for English speakers. So that's why Alex, who's American, and I, who am Australian, are not speaking in Estonian.
Well, among other reasons, but yes.
Yes, it's a beautiful language. So if you ever do visit Estonia, it would be, I think the people here would really appreciate it if you learned a few words to say when you're in the shops.
Let's give Hannah maybe a breather here. She can take a drink of water. So
Thank you.
yeah, as Hannah mentioned at the beginning of this section, taxation is quite complicated, especially when you're talking about cross-border business, as many of you are probably thinking about doing or are already actively engaged in. So one thing we always say is, work with a qualified tax consultant, right? So we have a marketplace, like we mentioned. I saw a few names shared of tax consultants, but I would actually like to ask one office. Sometimes I think it's intimidating to work with a tax consultant, right? What do you say, or how do you do it? So what would you guys suggest if someone would like tax advice? How should they contact you? What kind of questions should they ask?
Just contact us. There's nothing to be afraid of. We don't look up on you when you ask questions, because this is how you learn. One office also provides tax consultations, and when we have many customers from different countries doing business in all over the world, so we have experienced accountants who can help with the questions, and there's nothing to be afraid of.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I mean, actually, there's a question here about American. I'm not sure if you're an American citizen or permanent resident, but just keep in mind too that American citizens and permanent residents would have to deal with American taxes no matter where they're personal taxes as well. So keep that in mind if you're considering setting up your entity here in Estonia.
And actually, there are quite a few people from Iran and from countries in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa as well, asking about pickup locations and doing business and bank accounts, these kinds of things. One thing I would say, maybe a word of caution, is to take a look before you go through the whole process, take a look at your options around business banking, because your countries are on these FATF lists, it is more difficult for you. So you will need to have a very good business case to be able to apply successfully for a fintech account or a bank account with a traditional bank. So sorry to say this, it's the state of the world, that the way that the world is right now. But that's something that I definitely think you should do your due diligence on before going through the whole process of applying and starting a company. And then on a slightly more lighthearted note, someone was asking about our t-shirts, which are very nice. Unfortunately, we can't sell them as we're a government agency. But if you become an e-resident and you come to one of our meetups and you get to know us, that's when we might give you one. We might give you a hoodie or a t-shirt. That's why Maya proudly has her eResidency envoy hoodie. Okay, I'm not seeing any real tax questions that we're going to be able to answer it more than we have. So I think what I'm going to do is because we're on the hour, I'm just going to finish up with a few sort of what's next slides. In the meantime, Vera or Alex, if there are any questions that you think we can answer, let me know. But let's just keep this moving. So after the webinar ends, you'll get a link to a Typeform survey. It's got 4 questions, I think. It'll be very quick. Please give us your feedback for this webinar. And apologies for the IT problems at the beginning. I will fix that for next time. But please give us feedback. We have been using new slides today. So if you have any specific feedback about the slides or content that maybe you think we should add, let me know. If you have, I can see that there are a lot of questions in the Q&A tab that we haven't answered, and that's probably because either they are very specific and maybe you should direct them to a professional, a lawyer or an accountant, or they are related to things like moving to Estonia or getting visas, and we can't answer those questions because we are offering a digital identity and not a means to move to Estonia. So if you have questions that you still want answers to, we have a subreddit, which you can find by it's eResidency, or we also have a Facebook group called eResidents of Estonia, and you can put your questions in there, and the community of eResidents will help you find answers. Or we also have support channels, and you can find the support contact form on our website. Finally, apply if you haven't already. We'd love to have you as part of our community of over 110,000 people. So if the content that we've presented today and what you've learned has made you think, actually, this really will be a great thing for me in my entrepreneurial goals, then please apply. And finally, here is a QR code that takes you to our website, and that's where you can find a download of these slides. And as I said, recordings of older webinars, and you'll be able to get this recording maybe in a few days' time when I put it up. There's also a link here to our website, and these are the social media accounts that we have. We also have TikTok, but we don't have the TikTok icon yet, so sorry about that. So you can search for eResidency on our socials and follow us. And if you have applied and picked up your card, we'd love to see a selfie of you, because that makes us happy. So in the meantime, has anyone found any more? I'm going to stop sharing so that we can have our faces to answer any final questions. Is there any more questions before we sign off?
Yeah, I think, again, I just reiterate, there's a lot of very specific tax questions here. So dive into those resources that Hannah mentioned in that email you're going to get, or on that page that we shared, and talk to a tax consultant. Okay,
thanks, Alex. So Maya and Vida, any sort of last thoughts before we end the webinar today?
Oh, just always a pleasure to connect with new people. Do hit me up on LinkedIn if you want to, and come along to remoteworkeurope.eu. But I cannot answer tax questions, so over to the people who can.
Thanks, Maya. And Vida, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Hi, and I want to say thank you for having us again. And if there are any more specific tax questions, then you can contact us, and we will try to help you. Because at the moment, I didn't see the questions that I could answer like in this short period of time. And Marianne also answered as quickly as she could with some questions. But if there are some persons who want a little bit more information, then please contact us.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Alex, for being here as well. Thank you, Maya. And thank you all. I think we had nearly 300 people here today. So, and judging by the amount of questions we had, and actually by the amount that were answered too, as well, I can see that we answered well over 100 questions. So congratulations, everyone. And thank you very much for your great questions. And see you soon at another event. And I will close the webinar now. With that.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.